Hello, my name is Sophie Holder, Executive Officer at De Montfort University, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to another talk in our anti-racism series. Now, the anti-racism series is a set of lectures and presentations that focus on issues of race as they relate to different fields in academia and beyond, as well as ways to oppose and counter racial prejudice and systemic racism. Now, I'm very excited because for our talk today, we are joined by the award-winning event strategist, Michael Adeniya. He is the Chief Operating Officer at the UK Black Business Week, which is the largest event in the UK and Europe for Black entrepreneurs, career professionals, and allies to the Black community. Now, the UK Black Business Week brings together Black professionals from journalism, finance, business, health, the media, and music industry, and that's just to name a few. And with thousands of people attending each year, and that number increasing year on year, the Black Business Week is becoming the place for Black professionals to invest in themselves, build their network, and access opportunities like no other. But outside of the success of the week, we will also be hearing about the man behind the work, specifically Michael's journey to the boardroom and key learnings that he has acquired over the years from the companies and the people he has worked with. Please note that there will be a questions and answers section after Michael's presentation, so be sure to write any questions in the chat box and we will get through as many as we can at the end. We also have a special giveaway, so make sure you stay tuned. But without further ado, I again welcome Michael Adeniya, who will be talking about his journey and the growth of the UK's Black Business Week.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. And hello, everyone. Sophie, that's a great introduction. And yeah, it just reminds me of so much of the sort of impact and power that UK Black Business Week has had over the last few years. So I'm really, really excited to join you all today. And I'm really excited to share more about myself and share everything that we've done at UK Black Business Show and UK Black Business Week. I don't know how many people watching have attended the event before. But what I thought might be nice was if I just showed you a quick video of exactly what the event is like. And then that way, it just might give you a bit of a feeling for what it is that we create. So let me go ahead and kick this video off for you. Oh, let's see. There we go.
Well, good evening. My name's Raphael Sofaluk. I'm the founder and CEO of UK Black Business Show and UK Black Business Week. Today is all about creating the reality you want to see. I spoke about it in my speech, and it's important for us to actively go out and make sure we can make a difference in this world.
Having in a space where specifically we're talking about Black business really shines a light on where we are. It gives us a year-on-year map as to how things are going, what progress is being made, and having these spaces allow us to have the honest conversations that we need to have.
This is like a 1 in a million chance event. It's great to be surrounded by not just peers, but really inspirational speakers.
When you see your business or your company kind of advocating for the things that you care about, I think it starts to change the relationship that you have with that business. So it's a hugely proud moment, right? I think that we're having a real impact on business when it comes to talent attraction.
People who wouldn't necessarily know what opportunities there are out there, they understand that the world is their oyster. They could do lots and lots of different stuff. They really, really can.
One thing I have noticed is, even being here today, I've had 2 or 3 CVs sent to me by people looking for opportunities or either internships.
I feel absolutely proud to be able to have so many Black-owned businesses in the same place. It's an achievement to be able to gather this much, quality in the same room. And I'm just really looking forward to the future of Black-owned businesses, entrepreneurs and professionals.
There's so many opportunities that open up that you don't even realise. And I think just by being part of something, being part of a network of other like-minded, creative, driven, ambitious people, it's a sharing of talent, it's a sharing of ideas, it's a sharing of opportunities.
So you need those professional networks, you need those specialists who you can speak to and go, this is the problem I'm facing, this is the challenge I'm facing. How do I overcome that issue? How do I overcome that challenge?
You can't know enough and you can't know everything. When you come to an event like this, you meet diverse types of people in business and in attitudes, and you learn. And when you learn, you grow.
I'd like to say, first of all, a huge thank you to everyone who has contributed to this amazing week and this amazing day. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you again next year.
There we go. I assume that everyone managed to see that. I don't see anything in the chat saying there's any issues with that video, but I hope that gave you all a sort of insight and flavor of what UK Black Business Week is like. But yeah, now I'm just going to go ahead and just tell you a little bit more about what we're going to cover today, and just pull my agenda up for you. So hopefully you can see that. So yeah, what I'm hoping to cover off today is I'll definitely share a little bit more about me and my background and how I got into what I'm doing right now. Some background about how the UK Black Business Show started and where we are today. I'd like to share some information about what Black entrepreneurship means in the UK and what that looks like as well. And we've got actually a lot more going on other than the UK Black Business Show. We've actually got the Birmingham Black Business Show coming up in June. So I'll also tell you a little bit more about the other aspects of our business and our brands as well. But yeah, like I said, I'll probably, I think I'll start off with just a little bit of background about myself. So that's me, Michael Adeniya. My full name actually is Michael Adeshina Olubolaho Bosco Saeed Adeniya. I think it's always good to actually know all of my names. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and with that, it's very traditional in Nigeria to have several names, not just one. And I moved to the UK when I was around 18 months old. So similar to many Nigerians in the sort of early 80s, my parents wanted to bring me up in the UK to give me the chance of better opportunities. And with that, you know, they also, you know, my mum's a nurse, my dad's an accountant. They also created better opportunities for them as well in their chosen career paths. One of the things that I got from my parents is this sense of service in everything that they did. Service was actually really important to them. And the household I grew up in was actually quite a different dynamic. So typically, my mum was actually the main breadwinner in our household. So from a pretty young age, I was always actually quite used to my mum earning more money and paying the mortgage. And yeah, if I ever needed anything, it'd always come from her. I also had the benefit of being afforded private education. So I went to a private school in Southeast London, which again was, I think that afforded me a certain amount of privilege as well. So quite a sort of non-traditional upbringing that you might expect from a young Nigerian from Southeast London. And I think that some of these aspects about myself is always really important to share, because when every Black person has a completely different background, completely different outlook, and their own story, which I think is always good for everyone to be aware of and to share. So what did I do with all that privilege? Now, the funny thing is, I did go to university. I actually went to De Montfort University. Sophie, I can't remember if I actually shared this with you. So I did go to De Montfort University and I dropped out. So I'm actually a university dropout. Didn't enjoy it. It's De Montfort in Bedford. And I think that, like a lot of young people, a lot of young Nigerians, and not to sort of put all Nigerians in a similar bucket, I got a message from my parents that, you've got to go down this particular path. Go to school. We paid for your education. You go to university, and they expect you to study something. They expected me to study something like business or accounting or go into medicine or health or something like that. And that setup of academic learning just really wasn't for me. And now I know it, but at the time I didn't. But yeah, I've done so many different like personality tests and leadership tests now that I realize that my sort of go-to behaviors are one more of entrepreneurship and learning in a different way than the ways that I was expected to learn at school and at university. So yeah, I think when I was in my early 20s, I was trying my best to complete some courses at De Montfort, but there's about 3 or 4 that I just did not get on with at all. The ones that I gravitated to was things like marketing, and we actually did have an entrepreneurship course, which I absolutely loved. But I also played professional sport, and my degree was a joint degree with sport, and anything related to sports science, I just couldn't do it at all. So I made that decision to actually stop attending my classes, and I actually went to go and work in a bank. And so that was like my first foray into the real working world. And was a cashier in a bank and managed to work my way up. What was interesting when I started doing that was I realized that when I'm doing courses within the bank, and when I'm being asked to attend particular types of training or do some studying, I absolutely loved it. I in fact couldn't get enough of it, and it came out in my work. And when I realized that if I've got the opportunity to actually implement what I'm doing in a real life, what I'm learning in a real life scenario, I've really, really sort of thrived and enjoyed it and threw myself into it. So quite a few things have sort of come together in the way that I've been molded and being brought up. So after working in the bank, I managed to get a job in the events industry. And for those that don't know much about events, exhibitions, and so forth, the events industry is quite a strange one, especially when you do large trade shows like the ones I've worked on. They're essentially it's almost like an Amazon, where we help bring buyers and sellers together, but we actually don't own the venue that this event might take place, whether it's the NEC, Earl's Court, the Excel Centre. Our role really as event organisers is to really understand what these two kind of groups really need in order to kind of thrive. So started working at an organisation called DMG World Media. And in my time at DMG, again, I got into a sales role. I got a real passion for selling and, real passion for communicating the value of something to a potential buyer and understanding what a buyer's need really was. And I think that my parents' passion for service, whether it was my mum as a nurse or my dad as a small business owner, service often came through in what allowed me to succeed in my career path as well. Last sort of thing that I wanted to just share about me as well is, just relating back to the program that Sophie's put on here in terms of race and anti-racism. Equity is something that I've realized is absolutely vital, that everyone can actually play a role in. So because of the fact that I think largely because of the fact that my mum was kind of like a career-driven, very entrepreneurial and so forth. When I've engaged with women in the workplace, with people that might be from a less privileged background than even myself, I've thought, well, look, what can I do in whatever my little circle of influence might be? What can I do to create equity in order to allow other people to thrive? And what that's looked like for me growing up and going through my career and going through my life is, how can I create equity for the people around me? And that might be if I'm managing a team. This is actually quite timely given that it was International Women's Day yesterday. I, as a team manager, I'm responsible for pay rises, promotions, salaries, and I can see across the board of an entire team who's getting paid what, it became very apparent to me when I adopted that team that people are not being paid, women in particular are not being paid what they should be paid. So, and it often just rubbed me up the wrong way when people were made to jump through hoops and really fight in order to get a pay rise, whereas those kind of conversations should be a lot easier. And really, if it can be as painless as possible to get the right pay for the right role, for the right effort that you're putting into a particular job, the benefit actually comes back to the business as well. So that was, that's just one example, or it might be, really showing people a pathway to what promotion could be like, and doing that in, trying to remove any bias that I may have in terms of, what opportunity should look like for individuals, but actually show a range of opportunities that people can go for, without making any assumptions as to whether they should or shouldn't, fit into a particular path or not. And also back in 2016, so I've got two boys. My first son was born in 2016, and that was just around the time when the UK was bringing in the shared parental leave program. And in my business, and actually in the events industry in general, I was actually one of the very first people to take shared parental leave. There's a couple of articles about it when I did this, and weirdly, not unsurprisingly, in the business that I worked in at the time, there was quite a bit of scrutiny as to, why is this guy want to take shared parental leave? Like, does he not care about promotion? Like, does he not want to like move up the ladder? And the business really thought it was weird that I wanted to do something like that. And I think it's, again, partly because of the way that I've been brought up, and also my wife, she's a business owner. She's actually self-employed, whereas I had the benefit of employment. When I go on holiday, I get paid. When she goes on holiday or maternity leave, more importantly, she doesn't get paid. So I realized that, well, look, if there's an opportunity to take shared parental leave, it makes sense for me to take that, because I get the benefits of being paid while I'm doing that, whilst also it gives my wife the opportunity to get back into her career, get back into her business as quickly as possible for her. So it just made the right choices for her as an individual and for our family. And the added benefit, of course, was I got to spend some incredible time, with my young son for 4 months, in that sort of critical point in his life as well, which was absolutely amazing. Second time round, I also took shared parental leave. It was very, very different the second time round, because that was right in the middle of COVID. So it was a time when we were basically all working from home. He's one of those COVID babies born October 2020. So it was literally right in the middle of a lockdown as well. So that was a little bit about me. And I just realized I've probably been sharing my screen that whole time. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about how the UK Black Business Week and UK Black Business Show got to where we are. So I actually only joined UK Black Business Show just under 2 years now. And the way that came about was I was working for a business called Clarion Events. Clarion Events are the second largest conference and exhibition organizer in the world. They organize somewhere in the region of 800 events and exhibitions. And I think at last count, they were an £800 million business. So my role at that time, I was responsible for the life science portfolio. And I had a portfolio of events which I'd grown from one small event on the east coast of the US to 3 events across Asia, Europe, and the US, and also built a digital business off the back of it as well. So in my time at Clarion, I had the opportunity to really practice what people call intrapreneurship, and the ability to make mistakes. I kind of owned my own sort of business within that business, and had the freedom to try new things and so forth. And I think that was that opened up quite a few doors for me. I managed to get myself in a position where I started to be involved in mergers and acquisitions for the business. So literally, what kind of additional businesses might Clarion look to bring into the family that have the opportunity to scale or to support other parts of the portfolio. That was very much in the life science, and biotech and healthcare space. But around the time of the murder of George Floyd, it became apparent that Clarion were looking at, well, look, like many businesses did at the time, they were looking at what is our role in creating equity and in and changing what race and the barriers to entry look like in our community. And one of the beauties of the events industry is that as a business, and in the business of creating trade shows and exhibitions, and a business the size of Clarion, they actually touch so many sectors. Clarion organize events in oil and gas, cybersecurity, defense, technology, gaming, you name it, healthcare, like I mentioned, so many different sectors. And all of the sectors that I just mentioned, they all have a need to look at what does diversity, inclusion, and equity look like in those sectors. So at the time, I was also mentoring other people within Clarion. One of the people I was mentoring was a guy called Raphael Sofaluke. And Raphael Sofaluke was a sales manager in a digital transformation event. So in my time chatting to him, he mentioned to me, oh, and by the way, on my evenings and weekends as a side hustle, essentially, I launched an event called the UK Black Business Show. So he told me a bit about the show, and at that time he had 2,000 attendees. Something like 70 to 80 businesses were exhibiting, Black-owned businesses exhibiting. And he was telling me this in it would have been maybe like September, October 2020. So pretty much sort of like 6 months after the murder of George Floyd, and at the time when Clarion were looking at, what does their racial equity program look like? And I said to Raf, what you got here, this is not a side hustle. Like, this should be your main hustle. Like, this should be your absolute main thing that you're working on. So we managed to convince Clarion to allow Raf to go and work on the UK Black Business Show full time. They actually gave him office space, they gave him some startup funding, and he was able to actually go and work on it full time. I just, I wasn't planning on working with Raf in any way, shape, or form. But then about 3 months later, he asked me, look, Mike, I'd actually love it if you would be able to come on board as the chief operating officer and help me grow and scale the business. So it was literally a no-brainer for me. I didn't even ask my wife. I should have asked my wife, but I kind of said yes before I'd even spoken to her, because from everything I've kind of just told you about my background in terms of my parents coming over as entrepreneurs in the UK, I knew what barriers entrepreneurs in the UK, Black entrepreneurs in the UK faced, and to be able to play a role in changing that was an absolute no-brainer for me. So I joined RAF in June 2021, and from June to that October, we scaled what was UK Black Business Show, which was a one-day Saturday event at the Queen Elizabeth II Centre. We launched the first ever UK Black Business Week. And that UK Black Business Week, and Sophie kind of touched on it, across the course of the week, we now have the opportunity to touch on so many different sectors that are looking at what does diversity and inclusion look like in their roles. There's a tech day, there's a legal day, finance day, a leadership day. The likes of Sir Trevor McDonald was a keynote speaker on that day, and you probably would have seen in the video we've had some incredible speakers over the years as well. And yeah, so this is now our full-time mission, full-time project. And yeah, the business is now just scaling and scaling, and I'll come on to showing you a little bit more about how that's looking to. Just get rid of that. So just in terms of what entrepreneurship looks like for Black businesses in the UK, it's a really interesting time in the UK right now. It's actually never been easier to open up a business. You can create a limited company and get a business account literally within 10 minutes. And I think at last count, the government estimated that 80 new businesses are opened up every single hour in the UK. So we're seeing like one of the strongest booms, and there's so many tools available now. Digitization and the internet has just made it so much easier to create a business of so many different sizes and shapes. But the question remains, does everyone have an equal opportunity in what that might look like? So these two ladies here, this is Georgette and Safine. And Georgette and Safine, they're one of the exhibitors, one of our exhibitors at UK Black Business Show. And they launched a candle business. And for entrepreneurs like Georgette and Safine, there still remains a lot of challenges in getting their business out there. The two key challenges, and this was identified by the British Business Bank, is access to funding and access to networks. When it comes to funding, it's widely known now that Black founders are receiving the less than 1% of funding compared to the rest of the rest of the population when it comes to trying to secure funding to scale their businesses. And in particular, Black women are receiving something like 0.34% of venture-backed funding in particular. So a number of organizations are looking at how can they change the dial on that. And then when it comes to accessing the right networks, it's a case of, how can a Black entrepreneur get access to the knowledge, the power, the tips, the tools that can allow them to scale and allow them to also see role models that look like them, that's grown a business similar to them. I'm delighted to say that Georgette and Safine have been on a mentoring program that was created by ourselves and HSBC that has allowed them to take what was a side hustle for them to be able to go full time on their candle business. These are two incredible young women, two sisters, both under 25, that have been able to go full time in building that business. So an absolutely incredible story for them. And our passion at UK Black Business Show is how can we create that gateway for entrepreneurs like Georgette and Safine to get access to the funding, access to the networks, mentoring programs, scaling programs, and so forth, that can really allow their ideas to flourish. So, yeah, we now have created, like I said, back in 2017, RAF had an event that launched as just over 500 people. When we started talking just before the pandemic, it was just over 2,000. This slide's a little bit old. We actually hit over 10,000 visitors for 2022 at UK Black Business Show. And as you can imagine, with the nature of the show, 97% of our audience are Black. Incredibly, 68% of our audience are Black women. So the rise of entrepreneurship in the UK, of that intersectionality of Black female entrepreneurs, it's an incredible opportunity for the UK to seize that, and especially at a time when growth in the economic growth in the UK is desperately needed. A lot of that is going to come from small businesses. It's going to come from diverse businesses, and we're absolutely delighted to be a part of that journey as well. So, like I also mentioned, we now have a range of different offerings. The Black Tech Achievement Awards, which was actually just last night. So the Black Tech Achievement Awards, we this was again an idea founded by Raf. Just in the middle of lockdown, the tech sector is one of the sectors that we felt needed a hyper lens in terms of what does opportunity look like for Black talent in the tech sector, and it's nowhere near where it should be in terms of the stats of Black talent that's working in the tech sector, especially when London is one of the global tech hubs. And you look at what the ethnic makeup of London looks like, it's the tech sector is actually quite woeful in where it looks. So having an opportunity, especially after during the pandemic, when everyone was working not just twice as hard, 3 times as hard, or more in many scenarios, it was often young talent, young Black talent that wasn't getting the recognition that they deserved in their career paths. So having an awards that was unapologetically and purely celebrating Black talent, nothing like it exists. In fact, nothing like it exists in the world. And we've been asked to take this event over to the US as well, where I think we can have a much more significant impact as well. And yeah, the awards were last night. We had 500 attendees there, and the likes of JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Google, Facebook, Adobe, so many of the household tech companies that you know are now investing into how can we create a more equitable pathway for talent in the tech space. The UK Black Business Show, like I mentioned earlier, that's going from strength to strength. We've now launched the Birmingham Black Business Show, which I'll come on to very quickly. And we're in a little bit of a fuzz in terms of what our brand name is at the moment. And maybe that might be, I'd love to hear opinions from people dialed in, whether you think, UK Black Business Week might be an overarching brand name for us, or if there's something else that could be an overarching brand name for us. Moving forward, we've got 4 big areas that we really want to focus on. Number 1 is continuing to create that gateway for to solving solutions that are the barriers for Black economic growth, whether that's as an entrepreneur or whether that's as a career professional, whether that's looking at the pay gaps, whether it's looking at access to funding, access to finance and networks and so forth. Number 2, we are really focused on 4 core personas in that entrepreneurship and career path space. Number 1 is those that are at that very, very startup phase in terms of launching a business. They have a very, very different need from those that might be at a scale-up phase. So, and that there's, as an entrepreneur, I think that you could probably segment entrepreneurship in so many ways. But for us, we're really looking at 2 in that space. Those that are literally just starting out, that have a side hustle idea and are looking at how can they take that full time, and how we can get more of those to get the support that they need in order to do that. But then those that are at a scale up phase, I'm really excited about seeing how can we have more Black owned businesses that are multinationals, multi-million-pound businesses, and really transcending that gap of going from maybe 50 employees or maybe 10 employees to 50 or 10 employees to 100. And clearly in this day and age, that's going to be a business that will probably have some sort of tech backbone. And there's a wave of opportunities and ideas that can able to do that. And why? Something I'm really passionate about is if we can have more diverse businesses that are able to scale, able to even potentially be a FTSE 100 company, publicly listed company. They have an opportunity. These are the businesses that the data says don't have a problem with diversity. They are employing a diverse community, whether that's from gender or other protected characteristics, as well as racial diversity. And that can create so much more better outcomes for the Black community in terms of better education, better experiences for our families and so forth, if we can create more jobs and more opportunities in more diverse companies in that space. So we're looking at what tools can we create that can actually nurture and support businesses that really have the opportunity to scale. And then the other two are around the career professional space in terms of the personas. So, and it's a very, very, very similar sort of setup. Those that are at the start of the career. So, maybe those from a 16 to 24 age and maybe even younger that are looking at, what is the right career path for me? And what opportunities are out there for me that match the skill set that I have. How can I find the space that I belong in within the workforce? And then we have a growing cohort of those that are experienced in the workspace, but they might be looking at, well, what's the barrier that's stopping me getting into the boardroom or into leadership? Or what's the barrier stopping me from maybe looking at a career switch into tech or into finance or into something else? And how can we as UK Black Business Week empower them and give them the tools to either move upwards or laterally to achieve their goals? And we're also looking at what other sectors can we have a positive impact on in terms of diversity. That might be the construction sector or surveying sector. There's so many different sectors now that are asking us, well, what you've done in the finance space or what you've done in the tech space, how can our sectors also attract new talent into it from diverse groups as well? And I'm really passionate about exploring expanding geographic touch points as well. We can't really call ourselves UK Black Business Show if all we do is an event in London, or if everything gravitates around London. I actually live in South Wales, so looking at what the opportunities we can create across the whole of the UK is something really passionate about me as well. About our business as well. So the Birmingham Black Business Show, which I'll come on to quickly as well, that is one of our sort of gateways to not just Birmingham, the Midlands, but when we launched that event last year, it blew my mind that we were seeing attendees from Belfast, Edinburgh, Swansea, literally all of the UK. I think that's one of the beauties of Birmingham and the Birmingham NEC in particular. It's just so well connected. So that actually leads me nicely onto just a really quick overview of the Birmingham show. So we launched the Birmingham show, like I said, last year. We were already seeing a significant portion of our audience at the London show were coming from Birmingham. It was the second most populous city that our audience were coming from. That was in terms of registrations and also what we see on our social media channels as well, that we get a lot of engagement from Birmingham and the Midlands. So when we are thinking of how we might expand and how we might sort of create an additional show in the calendar, Birmingham was just a natural go-to for us for that. And the event is on Saturday, the 17th of June. It's a one-day Saturday show, and it's at the NEC in Birmingham, really, really well connected. Last year, we had just over 1,500 attendees. This year, we expect, I expect well over 3,000. And we also expect a lot of exhibitors as well, many of which are Black-owned businesses. But we're also creating a number of new opportunities, particularly around career paths, that are very interesting as well. I talked about those sort of 4 core audience personas that we're looking to engage. But in particular, we are creating a career zone at the Birmingham show. We actually launched it at the London show last October, and it was so well engaged. We essentially created an opportunity for anyone and everyone to be able to, when they're booking their ticket, they can actually book an appointment with a careers advisor. And that could be a careers advisor from the likes of Morgan Stanley, or a law firm that we are working with, or an independent careers advisor and careers coach like Michelle Raymond that you can see on the screen there. And people could ask anything. The beauty of it was that, and what I didn't know at the time when we thought that this might be a cool idea, is that there are so many questions that people have that all they needed was a safe space to ask that question. So it was and the feedback we got from the careers the advisors that worked with us and mentors that worked with us was that they were just so proud to be able to create that opportunity to answer questions that someone might just needed someone to give them 20 minutes, half an hour of their time to answer a question and point them in the right direction and so forth. So we're creating another zone like that at the Birmingham show as well. So if anyone that's dialed in is looking at, what kind of career paths might be right for me, or have a question that you just wanted to get off your chest and have a safe space to do it. If you don't feel like you've already got that now, then absolutely come down to the show. And I know that we've got advisors that will be more than happy to help you out. If we've got any entrepreneurs that are on the call as well today, we've launched a pitching competition for young budding entrepreneurs in partnership with Lloyds Bank, where they get to pitch their business. This is when we did it last year, we had an incredible judging panel of investors. That's Liam Byrne, the MP for an MP for a major section of Birmingham. Amanda Durrell on the end there, who's a regional director for Lloyds Bank, and we whittled down to a top 4 companies that were able to pitch their business to this panel, get feedback on their pitch, and they got the opportunity to win an exhibition stand at the show and be part of a 12-month mentoring program with Lloyds Bank. And the winner of the competition last year, Denise Myers, she has created some incredible opportunities to grow and scale her business, which was a recruitment business. She's now a preferred supplier for Lloyds Bank and a number of other corporate businesses, and has been able to take advantage of an amazing sort of PR journey with them as well. So that wraps up pretty much everything I wanted to share in terms of where we are as UK Black Business Show, UK Black Business Week. I probably went through at some pace there, but hopefully you got some time for some questions as well.
No, we do. We have about 15 minutes for questions, and I have a lot of questions, so that is great. You gave us a really expansive view of where you started, what you're doing now. But I guess one of the first questions that I have is, where do you see the business going and ending up? So for the Black Business Show week, when you decide on what the overall brand will be in the next 5 to 10 years, what do you want to see there?
That's a great question. I mean, it's a question that we ask ourselves that a lot at the moment, because it often feels like every year that we're only just scratching the surface. So sometimes, we can see maybe like what we kind of want to achieve in the next 2 years, but I think in 2 years' time, it might be a completely different set of challenges that we want to try and overcome. But for me, I kind of touched on it earlier in terms of geographic change. We have the Black community is not just in London, not just in Birmingham, but all over the UK. So at the moment we're looking at what impact can we have with the Black community all over the UK, and try and be as close to truly representative as we can in that regard. The sort of equity or the weight of opportunity shouldn't lie in just the major cities. It's not, and I think the future of the UK economy is gonna sort of prevent that from happening anyway. I go into our office in London once or twice a week, and the city's really, really quiet now. And we're seeing the villages and smaller towns, they're a lot busier on the weekdays. So we're looking at how can we get our data right in order to support people across the whole of the UK. So it might not just be more events, and then I think there might be smaller sort of touch points across the year, but it may also be, is there a digital backbone that we create? So we're getting so many inquiries from corporate businesses on, can we get our jobs promoted to your network? So a way that we can do that digitally is a way that we're looking to expand as well, and just a lot more education, probably digitally as well. And there may also be an opportunity, like I mentioned, to do we do what we've done here in the UK in other countries too.
Okay. No, that sounds good, and I really resonate with that, because I'm someone who grew up in London and moved out of London a few years ago, and finding these complete other communities of Black people who have no interest in being in the larger cities, but are still working in these areas and want to have access to these opportunities, these great opportunities outside of the central city. So very excited to hear that. Now, you're probably going to have to step very carefully on this question, because we are talking at a university. But since you didn't complete university, do you think university was necessary for the journey that you were on? Do you feel like you missed out on anything, or do you think your journey was perfect for you? And for, I guess, for other people who might be thinking, as university is getting more expensive, is that the only way for me to kind of succeed in my career?
Okay, so how I'll answer that question. The way I'll answer that question is, don't use me as an example, right?
Okay.
So I did spend 3 years at university. I just didn't complete it. So I did. And I got a lot of benefit from those 3 years. Like I said, there's probably 2 or 3 courses I absolutely loved that were really practical, and then there's some that were so theoretical that I just could not engage. So maybe there's something about just, and we're seeing it in schools as well. Like, is our education system, does it need to change?
Yeah, is it working?
In some sort of way? Yeah, is it working the way we want it to work? I'm not saying that things like Pythagoras and so forth are, I had to pull out a compass the other day to make my son a desk. So I think there are still skills that are important, but you think, oh, do I really need that? Well, you know what? Just building a network, a platform of different skill sets is important. How we do it now might just need to be tweaked somewhat. But is it necessary? I think that everyone should now be thinking as early as possible what choices might be right for them. So we're working with the likes of PwC, IBM, who else? Who at Tesco as well, who are looking at, well, look, the typical way that we've recruited people of, they got to go to this university, they got to have a 2-1, and then they can go on to this program at this junior level. Like, they're now thinking, well, actually, what if we got this person at 16, 17, and we taught them what we wanted them to learn in the job that they're doing, and they get paid at the same time. And it's amazing now that at the UK Black Business Show last October, I saw a 17-year-old pitching his idea to IBM.
Wow.
And they've gone to have a further conversation with him, not necessarily about his idea, but it was him in terms of his personality and his passion that they kind of bought into. And that is something that ingrained in him that he didn't get from university. He was a 16-year-old kid. So I think that there's so many routes now to a successful career or a platform for building your own business, that you don't necessarily have to go to university. I'm not saying that university is not needed. I think that the education system might be needed to be tweaked to get maximum value, and it's just not right for everyone.
I definitely agree with you. I was just playing devil's advocate on that.
Yeah.
But what I would say, which I think is very interesting as well, especially for university students, because I was talking to someone about this just yesterday, what we can have in having children gone from secondary school to university to getting a job is them now not actually thinking about being entrepreneurs or business owners, because the system kind of trains you to a certain degree to get qualified to go and find a job. So what would you say to people who are now graduates who are going into the working world, maybe not necessarily finding the jobs that they thought would be there, and now are probably thinking, should I start my own business? Should I not? Should I be looking down that route? What advice would you give to them?
That's interesting. So I think the stat is something like 70% of the jobs in 2030 do not exist today. So the job that, the typical jobs that you see today, they may not exist in the future, whether it's financial analyst, for example. Like, is that will that job exist in the future? But now, even I'm talking to businesses now that First Direct, for example, they've just recruited. So they're a bank. They've just recruited 10 mental health practitioners to work with customers of the bank. So
wow,
there is a whole range of, and we are starting to see it change. So what I'd say to someone that's just finishing uni or looking at what those options might be, I don't know what kind of job you're thinking you're looking for right now, but it probably won't be the job that you're going to be doing in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And one thing I've learned in my career path is everything is just an opportunity to learn. I think that there's a lot to be said in terms of, and I think everyone's personality is different. There's a lot to be said in terms of like having a very clear, crystal clear path for where you want to go, but also having just an open-minded perspective of, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm going to start it and see where it goes. Because another quote that I think is important is that sometimes winners quit. You could try something and then decide that it's not right for you and then try something else. And I know a lot of people that have quit on a number of different things in order to find what sticks for them.
So what would you say to people who might be afraid of starting something and the failure that might come with quitting? Because I think so many people don't try because they're afraid that it might not work out. But what would you say to people who have that fear?
I love that question. So a quote that I still think is very important to me today is, I only need 51% of my decisions to be good decisions to succeed. So making more decisions, and trust me, I have had some catastrophic failures in business, which I realized that, you know what, I needed that failure in order to get the next win. So, if you were to say, you know what, I made 10 decisions across the course of the year, 6 of them were good, 4 didn't quite work out. And that's actually the beauty of employment. And something that I'm trying to encourage more employers to think about now is, they call me like a classic entrepreneur, people that have an entrepreneurial mindset but work in a business. And if you can sort of apply that mindset in a business, it gives you, having a job can allow you to give you so much freedom to try new things. And even if it isn't in a business and you want to launch your own venture, trying it and it not quite working out is absolutely fine, because it's a lesson that you're learning. And the more decisions you can make, more opportunities you can create, as long as 51% of them work out, as long as you keep trying it, I'm very confident that if you've got a mindset that can iterate and grow from each one, you'll work out fine in the end.
Okay. So something that you said is that there are about 70, 80 businesses that are launched every day. Is there
every
space?
hour.
Every hour. Okay, every hour. Is there space for them all?
Okay, so another.
Someone might be like, that sounds like oversaturation, but is there space for everybody's idea to come to fruition?
There's a business that, so I mean, you look at Georgette and Sophine, right? So I did not think there was room for any more candle businesses. But there clearly is, and they've won accounts with hotel chains all across the UK, and they're now selling thousands of candles rather than 1 or 2 that they were at their exhibition stand at the show. I think there's always a space for a new idea. There's always a space for you as an individual telling your compelling story, because the best businesses come from someone that has an ingrained problem that really needs to be solved. And if you've got a problem that needs to be solved, there's an opportunity. I think that right now with sustainability needs and climate change needs, there's problems out there, or products that could be created out there that that need a different way of thinking. So I'd say, look, there's still opportunity out there. There is danger. The vast majority of businesses do not succeed. They may not be there in 18 months, 2 years time. That is the harsh reality of business. But like I said, sometimes that trial needs to happen in order to find something else.
So in terms of, I guess I want to ask, is it a chicken or the egg situation? Because you're talking about people looking like their candle business, something that they were passionate about, or looking for a need that needs to be fixed. Is it the idea that needs to come first and then the business? Or can someone know, you know, I don't want to be employed. I feel like my journey is going to be entrepreneurship. I want to start a business. How do I find what's right for me? Or should they wait, would you think, to have the idea and the thing that they're passionate about?
Yeah, I think you got to start off with the idea. And a lot of the time, like I'm still really intrigued as to where our business might go as UK Black Business Week. It may be that we're not an event business in 10 years time. I think your question is quite interesting because it may change and we may iterate. Like Twitter, when that's launched, Twitter was not what it is now. When Twitter launched, it was a podcast business. Like it was literally a business of sort of like audio. There's an audio podcast platform. So sometimes you got to start something, and then once in the process, you realize, I need to change it, I need to tweak it. So I think the idea does need to come first, and a big sense of purpose and a why. And if you got that, then yeah, that can be the root of the decisions that you make and how you might change and tweak things.
Okay. And our time is wrapping up, so I'm going to ask one more question. When you're talking specifically about the Black Business Show and Week, you're talking that a lot of the focus you have at the moment is in like finance and tech. Are you saying, I don't think you are, but I just want to make sure for people who are listening, are you saying that people need to have a financial background or a technical background, or can they come along and hear about other ways that they can get involved? Because someone might hear JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, oh, I wasn't good at maths, so it's not for me.
No, not at all. So interesting story. So someone that I know that works at HSBC, he's terrible at maths, but he got his job as a relationship manager because he's very good at building relationships. And his background is actually in video production. So he came into HSBC shooting videos, and now he advises multi-million-pound businesses on how they trade overseas. So, and yeah, like I mentioned about First Direct and their mental health supporters for their customers. There are so many different routes. Yeah, I think which business was it? I think Lloyd's Bank even have in-house DJs, for example. Like there's so many different types of roles. So no, definitely not the case. And especially, and also in tech, you don't have to have a tech. You don't have to learn how to code to get a job in tech either.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
For sharing your story, for sharing what you're doing. It sounds amazing. I know for myself, I will definitely be at the next one in Birmingham, and that will be happening on June. What was the date? June
the 17th.
June 17th, and we will also be giving away a discount to 50 people to come along to the Birmingham Black Business Show. You just
free
need
of
to
charge,
type in free of charge. Okay, not even a discount, free of charge. You just need to tie in DMU50 on the website, and that is birminghamBlackBusinessShow.co.uk, and type in DMU50 to get your free ticket. So thank you so much. This has been the end. Thank you for coming. I'd love to have you again and just see after the show and how it's going, because it was really great and so inspiring to hear what you're doing. And there's definitely a lot of students who I think would be very interested. So,
all right.
Thank you. And that comes to the end of another anti-racism series. We do have our next show coming up on the 29th of March, which will also be at midday. And that will be with Selena Boyd, the CEO of Cocoa Girl and Cocoa Boy magazine. She'll be talking about being Black in publishing and creating the UK's only Black children's magazine. So be sure to sign up on the 29th of March. Thank you, and we'll be seeing you soon.